Now, Intel has been fighting the EU for 8 years now over a $1.3 billion fine. The US chip giant was found guilty of hindering competition, and now Intel has won the latest round in that battle. The EU's Court of Justice has ruled that a lower tribunal has to re-examine Intel's appeal against the fine. Now, the EU's top court ruled that judges failed to properly analyse the economic aspects of the case in their 2014 decision to reject Intel's appeal. At the heart of this case are rebates that Intel gave to computer makers between 2002 and 2005 if they bought at least 95% of their computer chips from Intel. The court ruled that Intel's actions hurt rival chipmaker Advanced Micro Devices. For more on this, Elena Casas joins me now live from Brussels. Elena, great to see you again on Money Talks. Let's talk about this case in a little bit more detail. Tell us a little bit more about the significance of this latest decision.
Well, Intel is very rare among tech companies in having bothered to fight the European Commission about this at all, let alone through the courts for 8 years. The European Commission very rarely loses in antitrust cases, and firms tend to reach a settlement before the Commission gets to the stage of imposing a fine. Now, Intel hasn't exactly got what it wanted from the court today. The court didn't overturn the original judgment. It simply sent it back to the lower court and said they must consider the facts again, which isn't quite what Intel wanted, but it's an important precedent for other US tech firms, perhaps most importantly Qualcomm, which is at the subject of at the moment of another EU antitrust inquiry for doing almost exactly the same thing. In Qualcomm's case, for having paid Apple in exchange for Apple agreeing to only buy Qualcomm chips. It's of course also an important precedent for Google, which received the biggest fine in antitrust history from the Commission back in June, $2.88 billion. In a very similar antitrust case.
And another company that caved into pressure was Google recently, wasn't it?
Well, Google hasn't exactly caved over that biggest antitrust fine in history. What it has done is agreed to change the results that it sees when you Google something to buy on Google Shopping. What it needs to do is prove to the Commission by the end of this month, September, that it's not unfairly favouring its own Google Shopping service over other rival services. And it has agreed to do that, but it's not agreed to pay that $2.88 billion fine. We're expecting Google to file an appeal against that fine, perhaps within the week.
Elena Casas in Brussels, thank you ever so much.